Hey, Fran fam. Welcome to Life and Style with Francine. I am your host, Francine Walker. My next guest, his single At Risk, can probably resonate with a lot of us, unfortunately. It's called At Risk. And my guest is from Toronto by way of Barbados. Please join me in welcoming Jair Dynast to the show. Hi, Jair.
Hey, how are you doing? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes? Okay, perfect. Okay. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good, good. So let's talk a little bit about the single that was recently released on at the end of October, correct?
Yeah, right at the end of October. Yeah, At Risk. Um, yeah, so At Risk is basically a follow-up to a previous single I released called Profiling. And on that single, basically, I discussed a situation that I went through where I experienced police brutality and profiling. And I basically just talked about that specific experience, and it was kind of reminiscent to the situation that happened with George Floyd and several other young black men in our community.
Yeah,
And so following that, I decided to release At Risk, which is speaking from the perspective of a young black man who has actually died
yeah,
and is kind of apologizing to his mom for not coming home, like, because whenever you leave your house, your mom's always like, make sure you come back, right? Because
yeah,
um, we're well aware of the different situations that we face as young black men in North America, and to be honest, throughout the world, given the color of our skin. So I kind of tried to speak from that perspective, and I kind of tried to speak from the perspective of the things we face in society that lead us down paths that and bring us to that kind of an end. But I also
sure.
try to speak from a perspective of some of the things that we do in within our own community that leads us down those paths as well, regardless of the obstacles that's placed in front of us by society. So
Talk about some of those things that are self-imposed from our community that could put us in those positions, could put us literally at risk.
yeah, as a young black guy, first of all, like in the music and the entertainment and stuff like that, right out the gate, I mean, a lot of that stuff is kind of glorified, and understandably so. When you want to make it in the industry and stuff like that, you're gonna kind of cater to the sound that's out there. So there's a lot of, like, nowadays the kids are doing a lot of drill and quote unquote gangster rap and that sort of thing like that. So that's become highly prevalent in our community, and it kind of speaks to our experience that's going on. Like, we make choices where you know we're quick to focus on heading towards a street life kind of mentality versus um, you know looking to take other paths, because those paths seem more available, more accessible to us, and that in and of itself is not necessarily our doing, but we do have control in terms of the choices that we make.
Sure.
And we can definitely seek to go a different route rather than to go that route that seems so much more accessible to us, I would say. um, so yeah, so there's that. um,
Do you
and
feel that a lot of those decisions could be um, influenced by peer pressure in the community?
Yeah, for sure, you can definitely, I mean, you always talk about role models, right? Like, what do we see when we step outside our house, right? Like, I mean, you've got, a lot of kids are outside, they're trying to play basketball, they're trying to do some other kind of sport, and and that seems accessible. And then the other thing that you see is your boys on the block. You see your guys out there, and that's kind of like a lot of times, you know, we're coming up in households where, you know, there's only one parental figure at home, usually a mom. So then, you know, the guys that you see as a young man are the men that on the block, you know. And so it's kind of natural to gravitate towards that, because that's like the male figure that you see, the strong
Sure.
male figure, the strong presence is the guy on the street, right? And so you know, it's kind of easy, like I said, accessible for you to kind of want to be like that guy, and you learn from that guy, because that's the guy that you're interacting with when you leave your house, right?
Sure. Talk about you. Profiling was speaks to your own personal experience. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that experience happened to me when I was about I think I was around like 12 or 13 years old. And basically it was a pretty you know, what started off as something really simple. I went to the corner store, and while I was in that corner store, some guys from my neighborhood came into the corner store, decided that they're going to rush the store. That's what they used to call it back in the day, rush the store.
Sure.
A whole bunch of men just or whatever. So they did that while I was in the store. They grabbed whatever they needed to grab, and they ran out of the store. And I was kind of like left in the store, kind of like, oh man, you know. And then I left the store. And back then I had a high top fade. I don't know if you remember like Kid and Play and
I
those
do.
guys from back in the day, right? Yeah. So I was obviously influenced by that. So I had my high top fade and everything. So that made me really recognizable, not only just because I was black, but I had that high top fade. So myself and another friend, a female, we were walking up the street, and within a couple minutes, the cops pull up, and they're like, basically, they took us into custody, saying that we robbed the store a few minutes back. They took me to the station. They came inside the station. I mean, sorry, not. They put me inside of an interrogation room. Came inside the interrogation room with a Joe Louis chocolate thing, and they were like, "You stole this," and he threw it in my face. It hit me in the face and dropped. And he's like, "Pick that up," and I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm not picking that up. If I pick that up, then my fingerprints are on it, and then you
Oh
now have
wow.
proof that I stole that." You know what I mean? Because he came in,
Yeah.
it's like, "You stole this," and threw it in my face. And I'm like, you know, kind of like taken back. And then, you know, I wouldn't pick it up. I kind of clenched my fist like this and held my hands down. And they started hitting me, trying to get me to pick it up and stuff like that. But I refused to pick it up. And I said, all I want is to talk to my mom. Call my mom. Call my mom. And I kept saying that. And eventually they called my mom. My mom came to the station, and she was like out of this world, upset. Um, I had to wait to speak to like a magistrate or something like that before they would release me into the custody of my mom. And then eventually it actually got taken to trial. But when it got taken to trial, the charges got dropped, because the lady who owned the store then, when they asked her if I was one of the people that were involved in trying to rob the store or whatever, she said no, she couldn't, she didn't remember. She, because at that time, now my mom, like as soon as I got home, the first thing my mom did was cut off my all my hair. She cut all my hair off, and she's like, "You're done with this business. You're not gonna look like everybody else, this and that." And you know what I mean? So probably a blessing that she did that, because the lady didn't recognize me anymore, and the charges got dropped. And so but you know, it was a clear situation of profiling, because the funny thing
Sure.
was that the guys that robbed that store, none of them were black. They were all of other ethnicities or whatever. But somehow, you know, the one black guy that was in there is the first person to get identified as being someone who robbed the store. Those other guys never got arrested, never got charged or anything like that. And
Yeah.
so I'd put that to a record, like, and just talk about that experience, because you know, at 12, 13 years old, those are the experiences that, and that's just one of many. Like I can.
Yeah. I mean, you're in Toronto. I'm
Mhm.
here in the States, Michigan, right across the water. We still can't come over there because of the pandemic. You know,
Yeah.
and I know you guys don't want us over there, but racism, profiling, all the things that we're talking about uh, are prevalent everywhere, all over the globe. You
Yeah.
know, there is no difference in wherever you are. I mean, the adultification of children, you know, being
Right.
tried. Your story kind of resonates with me, like Central Park Five, where they were all taken in and intimidated
Mm-hmm.
and taken advantage of, you know. Thankfully, your mom came in raising some sand, you know what I mean, and was probably sagacious enough to say, because,
Yeah.
you know. So, but how
Yeah.
did you feel, you, first of all, and then have your hair cut off, all your hair cut off, so that
Mm-hmm.
you lose somewhat of your own identity, so
Yeah.
that you're not misidentified.
Exactly, right? Like, you know, looking back on it now, I'm thankful that my mom was the way she was.
Yes,
You know, she came in there, you know, from your perspective as a kid, you're kind of embarrassed because your mom is in there yelling at everybody. Like, she was raising hell, like to the point where the police kind of just wanted her out of there. So they were just like, okay, 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 all right, you know? And then like you said, back then that hair was a big part of my identity, right? Like I was a
sure,
kid really heavily into hip hop. I was breakdancing. I was doing all this stuff, you know. And like the thing is that happened over a weekend, right? So like the next school day on the Monday when I went to school, and now this cameo that you know, high top fade that I worked so hard to grow, and I was so, you know, like kind of proud of it or whatever, it was gone. And you know, my boys, they see me, and the first thing they did was laugh. You know what I'm saying? Everybody
yeah,
was laughing at me and all that kind of stuff. So like you said, my whole identity, because of that one situation, my whole like identity at that time just got stripped away from me, granted to protect me from you know, situations like what
sure,
I experienced. But you know, as a kid, you're thinking like, you know, damn, like now I'm all embarrassed, I can't go to school, and when I go to school now, men's are going to be laughing at me, you know. And so true they were, right? And so yeah, man, it's an unfortunate situation that unfortunately we're faced with. And you know, having given the history of what we've experienced as a people prior to all of this, to you know, to come all these many years from slavery and, you know,
yes,
Jim Crow, and you know, all these different things that happened to us, you know, the Underground Railroad. We've got, you know, members of the community here in Canada that live in Nova Scotia are part of that whole pipeline and whatnot. And then to still to this day to have to be going through these kind of experiences, and they're very real. And I, like you mentioned earlier that, you know, like you feel it from a perspective of having a son as well, right? And I
yes.
too, now I have a daughter and a son, and you know, I'm
Twins,
kind of,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're not twins. They're close in age though, very close. Like
Okay, they're beautiful.
thank you. Yeah, they're 5 and 7. But you
Yeah.
know, I look at them, and right now they have that wonderful innocence that you have as a
Yes.
child, you know, and
Yes.
they're just really enjoying life and everything. And I dread the day that I'm gonna have to say to them, like, you know, because of the color of your skin, this is the kind of situations that you're gonna have to be prepared to deal with, and this is how you're gonna have to be able to. This is how you're gonna have to try to navigate them, you know,
Yeah.
and that makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest.
I know. I know. As a mom with an almost, he's 29, and it's like, hey, call me. You know, you okay? You're good. You know, he's grown, but
Yeah,
it's still my baby, and because I know how this world is. So now
yeah,
we have the profiling. You know, then we've got, uh, you know, this summer, George Floyd, global unrest, the
yeah,
response, the protest, which, you know, we're still kind of waiting on some things to change. Talk
yeah,
about At Risk, your new single. That was, so we got the profiling, now we have At Risk,
yeah.
and similar, you know,
Hmm.
where your situation in the your profiling single could have turned
Yeah,
deadly, and you could not have come home.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, with At Risk, it like I said, it speaks to that experience. There's so many different paths that we as young Black men in North America can take, and a lot of times they end up in the result of us not coming home,
Yes.
right? And so I felt
Yes.
like it was necessary to really touch on that, from a street life perspective, from just a perspective of like the systemic racism of our society, and also from the perspective of us as young men making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the mistakes that we make can actually be deadly, right? And so I felt like a song like that, I felt like just expressing that, those ideas and those situations and the frustration that you feel from all of that, um, and so that's where At Risk really came in, and I tried to really speak from the perspective of a kid that didn't make it home, and just apologizing to his mom because he got caught in the streets holding chrome, and then
Yeah.
got shot, right? And I'm not identifying who shot him or whatever, because like
No,
I
you
said,
didn't.
there's so many different ways that he could have gotten shot. He could have gotten shot by police officer. He could have gotten shot by his best friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's really just a tough
I was
situation.
trying to listen. I was trying to listen to the single, to like, who? Okay, and we actually have the single that we're going to close the show out with. Coincidentally, you said he was in the afterlife apologizing to his mother, whereas George Floyd called upon his mom in the same vein.
Yeah.
Did that influence your At Risk at any?
You know what? It didn't. The crazy thing about all of this is that I had taken some time off of music for about 6-7 years. Like once my son was born, I really pulled myself away from music and really focused on being a father figure at home, and
Sure.
being involved in raising my kids, right? So like for everything from being involved with changing the diapers, feeding them, holding his hand until he started walking, all that stuff, right? Like the things that every parent goes through. I focus more on that, and also I'm a youth basketball coach here in Toronto, so I've been working with the youth and coaching basketball in the inner cities and around in various different communities. So I've been focusing on that, but then this pandemic hit, and I was sitting in my home with time on my hands, because normally with the kids, and then once I'm done with the kids, I'm off to go coach. So in the evening time, I'm gone, But with the pandemic, we weren't even allowed to be in gyms or any of that sort of thing. So I was just sitting one day and I was listening back to some of the records I recorded. At Risk and Profiling are part of that catalog. I recorded those songs many years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, like I recorded At Risk maybe about 10 years ago. And so it's crazy because here are these tracks, and these are these situations, they're happening right now.
Yes.
These tracks still speak to those situations, right?
And yeah.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. So those situations inspired me to release the tracks to the larger audience out there, but I had already written them, right? Because these things have been happening in my community for years. I mean, right now here in Toronto, the gun violence is so ridiculous. I think we've got like 400 or some odd incidents of gun violence just this year alone, and the year's not even over, right? And so yeah, it's just something that's been prevalent in our community for so long, and these tracks, they speak to all these different situations that now, thankfully, because we've got platforms like the internet, like it's actually becoming more known to the wider global audience. But we've been dealing with this stuff in the hood for years.
Yeah. Well, I actually have the single At Risk, the video. We're going to close the show out with the single. Anything you want to add before we close?
No, I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you and speak to your audience. And
Thank
I hope
you.
you can go check me out. You can follow me on Instagram at Jair Dynast, or you can check out my website, jairdynast.com. And yeah, I definitely would appreciate everyone's support. And again, I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Here we go.
All right.
Yeah. These situations, crazy, right? Yeah. Sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, I said, sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot, to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, breathe with me, I barely sleep. Caught between a rock and these gritty streets. A young buck on my daily creep. Inevitable, like a gas price increase. That's the path I walk, the path I choose. Limited options got me making moves, cause I can't see the other side and how they do. When double-sided mirrors I'm looking through, I see a reflection of how I'm supposed to be. And my mother, she ain't home to talk to me. She got 2 jobs, 5 mouths to feed. That's my roots, now I shall proceed. And my father been gone 10 years now. 93% of us took him out. Murder, that's the case that we talking about. Wanna meet God, another brother help you out. Sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, I said, sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, had no basis or education, lost one parent to this starving nation. Somehow you expect a revelation, nature versus nurture approximation. That's right, out here we grinding hard. Down south they trap, we just boulevard. You white collar crime with limited costs. We get 10 years for our first felony charge. Is the system flawed or your regime? A novel idea like a Dickens theme. Institutionalize your plots and schemes. We thinking we seeing Martin Luther's dream. And yeah, perhaps there's some of us that do, but I'm concerned with that many few. That 1.5 million who incarcerated, working so hard for you. Sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, I said, sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, sorry, mama ain't coming home. So sorry to leave you alone. Hey, yeah. Look, war with ourselves on a regular basis. The man in the mirror, never mind the racist. Check the facts, cause ain't none of them baseless. Blood on our hands and it's time we face it. Ignorance is bliss, but ain't none of this worth the consequences that a trial to get. 25 to life, and that's how we risk. The KKK gotta be loving this. Mental barrier, we can't seem to escape. I get an education, somehow I'm fake. And you're real, cause you gotta run from Jake. Freestyle some garbage about pies you bake. They say I'm Jeremiah Wright, preach when I'm rapping, cause the truth hurts when I speak with passion. Vivid so real you don't need to imagine. Just take a listen, you can see it happen. Sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, I said, sorry, mama ain't coming home. I got caught in the streets, holding chrome. I got shot to the back of the dome. So the next time you see me at the funeral home, yeah, dedicated to all the at-risk youth, you know. It's for us. Vibe with it. Jair Dynast.